Hey guys, tonight we're heading somewhere hot, ancient, and just a little dusty. You're about to wake up in Egypt, no, not modern-day Cairo, but around 3,000 years ago, when the Nile was the heartbeat of the world and pyramids weren't ruins yet. You're not a pharaoh, not even a priest. You're a servant, one of the hundreds who keep the mighty Egyptian world running quietly in the background. And trust me, you probably won't survive this week. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And drop a comment telling me your location and your local time, because I want to know where in the world you're listening from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You wake up before the sun even thinks about rising. The air is still cool, rare mercy in a land that will soon bake you alive by noon. You sleep on a reed mat, maybe beside your wife or a few other servants, all crammed in a small mud brick house near the Nile. The walls are rough, the floor dusty, but you've grown used to it. When the first ibis cries in the distance, that's your alarm clock. You rub your eyes, stretch, and smell smoke someone's already baking bread. Breakfast isn't much. A small round loaf, maybe a sip of beer, not the kind to get drunk on, but thick, yeasty stuff that fills your stomach and gives you strength. You chew slowly, staring at the faint orange line that's spreading across the horizon. That's the sun, your master and your enemy, both. You wrap your linen kilt stiff, coarse, but better than nothing, and splash some Nile water on your face. No soap, just water that smells faintly of reeds and silt. Your feet are bare. Sandals are for people with titles. Today will be long. As the light grows, you can already hear the city coming alive. Oxen groan in the distance, children run with baskets of clay pots, and somewhere temple bells echo softly. The smell of baked bread and donkey sweat fills the air. You start your walk to the palace. It's a sprawling complex of mud brick walls and limestone columns. Its paint fading, but still glorious. The closer you get, the cleaner the air, smells less of fish, more of incense. Every morning the servants enter through the side gate, heads bowed, no words spoken. The guards at the entrance barely glance at you. They're used to the line of servants shuffling in, some carrying water jars, some holding trays of linen, others leading donkeys piled with reeds or fruit. You all have different roles, but the same silence. You work for a noble family, a high official who oversees grain distribution, a man who wears gold rings and speaks in slow, commanding tones. He has a wife who loves mirrors and oils, and a daughter who wears perfume so strong it makes you sneeze. Your first task? Sweep the courtyard. Sand gets everywhere, even inside the palace, carried in by the wind. A bundle to brush it away, leaving little swirls in the dust. The floor shines faintly under the early light. By now, your body's moving automatically. You've done this 1,000 times before. Clean, carry, fetch, repeat. Your hands know the weight of bronze trays and the feel of damp linen. It's strange, though. As you move through these corridors, you see the world the way few others do. You notice the little cracks in the walls, the hidden stairs that only servants use, the way the master's wife always glances at the priest when he visits. You are invisible, but you see everything. You pass the kitchens where other servants are busy. Smoke fills the air, flatbread baking, fish grilling, onions sizzling in clay pots. You grab a handful of dates from a bowl when no one's looking. You'll need that sugar later. Outside, the sun is up now, and the heat hits like a slap. Sweat trickles down your neck. You carry water jars from the well, balancing them on your shoulder. Each step crunches on gravel, and your arms ache. But stopping isn't an option. Not here. Once, a servant collapsed from heat stroke. The overseer didn't even look up, just waved his hand for someone else to drag the body away. Life here is cheap, except for the masters. But there's something beautiful in this rhythm, too. When you look toward the Nile, you see the shimmer of water reflecting golden light. Farmers in loincloths push plows drawn by oxen. The temple's white pillars gleam in the distance, and the air smells faintly of myrrh. It's a world alive with purpose, even if yours is to serve. Scholars still argue whether Egyptian servants were truly slaves or simply bound laborers. Some say you were born into service but could earn freedom. Others believe you were property tied to the household until death. To you, those debates don't matter. The only thing that matters is keeping your master's family happy and your back unwhipped. As the morning stretches on, you find small moments of peace. A cool sip of water, the sound of the harpist practicing in the courtyard, the laughter of another servant whispering a joke too risky to repeat aloud. It's odd what you notice when you belong to someone else. The way the sun paints every stone gold. The way papyrus rustles like soft applause when the wind blows. The way your shadow grows long on the courtyard wall, as if reminding you that time passes even for those who serve. By the time the sun climbs high, your stomach growls again. Noon means a short break if you're lucky. You sit in the shade of a fig tree behind the palace and share bread with another servant. He tells you about his cousin in Thebes, who once saw the Pharaoh's boat float by sails of gold, music echoing across the water. For a moment you imagine it, freedom, wealth, respect. Then the overseer's voice cuts through the air, and your fantasy shatters like pottery on stone. You stand, stretch your sore back, and head toward the inner halls again. The noble's wife is awake now, and she'll want her makeup table arranged before her bath. You'll light the incense, lay out the mirror, fetch the oils, and if she's in a good mood, she might even smile at you. If not, well, you've learned to move quietly when anger flares. The rest of the day still stretches ahead like the desert horizon. But for now, you take a breath. The Nile wind carries a soft scent of lotus flowers, and the sky above is blinding blue. For one brief heartbeat, you feel almost human. You enter the palace halls just as the sun begins to blaze white across the courtyard. The limestone walls shimmer, almost glowing, and the heat from outside lingers even within these shaded corridors. Your bare feet move silently across smooth floors of polished plaster, and you keep your eyes down. Here, every glance matters. Too high, and it's arrogance. Too low, and you might seem guilty. The palace has its own rhythm, quiet, precise, filled with the murmurs of people who exist only to make others comfortable. You can hear the soft brushing of brooms, the drip of water jars being refilled, the faint plucking of a harp somewhere deep within the chambers. You move among them, one of many, invisible yet essential. The noble you serve, your master, is a man of power. He manages grain for the temples and reports directly to the Pharaoh's officials. His words can move ships, armies, or families with a single command. But as he lounges in his chamber, sipping beer from a decorated cup, you're the one who makes sure his world stays perfect. You begin with the small things. His linen kilt must be folded exactly 3 times before being placed near the foot of the bed. His bronze mirror must gleam so clearly that he can see not only his face but the beads of sweat forming on his temples. His jewelry, gold rings, a wide collar of turquoise and lapis lazuli, must be arranged according to his mood. You've learned to read that mood the way others read hieroglyphs. If he hums softly, he's in good spirits. If he's quiet, you tread carefully. And if he frowns, well, even the flies seem to know to stay away. Soon his wife emerges, the lady of the house. Her feet glide across the floor in silence, her wig perfectly curled and perfumed with oil of cedar. You bow so low your forehead nearly brushes the ground. She barely glances at you as she orders, "Bring the blue jar, the one with the lotus oil." You hurry, weaving through other servants in the antechamber. One is fanning the room with ostrich feathers. Another kneels, polishing a copper basin until it burns with reflected light. In the corner, a slave girl grinds ochre pigment on a flat stone, ready to mix it with fat for the lady's eyeliner. When you return with the oil, you hold it with both hands, a gesture of respect. She doesn't thank you, of course. Gratitude isn't part of this world. Instead, she lifts her chin and lets another servant dab her neck with the sweet-smelling liquid. As you step back into your place near the door, you watch quietly. You've seen it all before, but it never stops being fascinating. The transformation of human into divine. They dress like gods, speak like priests, and believe the universe exists for their comfort. You, meanwhile, keep the fire of that belief alive. The hours stretch. The noble prepares to meet visitors, other men of status, or sometimes priests from nearby temples. You pour beer into their cups, refill their plates with figs and roasted duck, and stand perfectly still behind them as they talk of taxes, rain, and the afterlife. The smell of meat and honey mixes with incense smoke, turning the air heavy. Now and then, your master gestures for you to fan him. His voice is smooth, commanding. "Closer, boy." The air grows thick. You obey instantly. The fan swishes rhythmically, almost hypnotic. Your arms ache, but you don't dare slow down. You're trained to anticipate needs before they're spoken. That's your true craft. A servant's value lies not in obedience, but in prediction. You learn patterns: who wants water when the air turns hot, who needs shade at certain hours, who secretly prefers their bread dipped in honey, though they pretend to fast. The palace hierarchy is complex. At the top are the nobles and scribes. Beneath them, skilled workers, cooks, musicians, hairdressers. Then servants like you. And below even that, the slaves captured in wars or born to families that owe debts. It's a ladder made of sand, and no one dares climb too high. Still, there's gossip that some servants, after years of loyal service, earn freedom, even land. One man you know, now old and half-blind, claims to have seen a royal steward granted a small plot near Memphis as reward. But you suspect it's just a story people tell themselves to make. The days feel shorter. Scholars still argue whether servants like you were bound by law or simply by fear. Some believe contracts existed, written promises in ink and papyrus. Others think it was more spiritual, an unspoken belief that your place in the cosmic order Mayat required obedience. To rebel was to invite chaos. As you polish a bronze tray, you think about that idea, Mayat, the balance of all things. The priests talk about it often, the harmony between gods, earth, and man. Maybe your endless labor is part of that divine balance. Maybe the world keeps spinning because you keep scrubbing. Then again, maybe that's what they tell you, so you won't question it. The lady's daughter appears maybe 12 years old, full of laughter and mischief. She runs through the halls chasing a pet cat, giggling until her mother scolds her sharply. The sound echoes like a whip crack. You catch the cat before it escapes, holding the squirming creature gently until the girl snatches it from your arms. Her fingers brush yours for a second. It's the softest human touch you've felt all week. The afternoon light floods the room now, painting the floor gold. The nobles talk lazily. Half listening to a musician plucking a harp, you stand by the door again, mind drifting, body rigid. The noble's wife complains that the air smells of sweat. You're set to burn more myrrh. The noble demands a fresh cup of beer, not too warm, not too cold. You bring it quickly. There's no space for mistakes here. You've seen people beaten for spilling a drop. As you move about, you notice something odd, a faint crack in one of the limestone columns. You trace it with your eyes. It's small, almost invisible, but it's there. The palace is perfect on the surface, yet time still seeps in, breaking it grain by grain. A fitting metaphor, you think, for your life. Evening is approaching. You can tell by the color of the light, softer now, turning the walls amber. The noble stands, stretches, and leaves for his private garden. You follow at a distance, holding a jug of water. He stops by a pool filled with lotus flowers, the scent strong and sweet. For a brief moment he looks up at the sky, silent. You wonder what he thinks about. Does he ever consider the people who make his world run? Does he remember your face? Probably not, but you'll remember his. Every line, every gesture, burned into your memory like carvings on temple stone. Because in this world, memory is all a servant truly owns. By the time the sun reaches its highest point, you've already been working for hours. The air outside turns thick and shimmering, as if the whole world has melted into heat. The palace walls no longer protect you. The light sneaks through every crack, every window, every pore in your skin. You step out into the courtyard, squinting against the glare. The other servants are already moving like shadows through the brightness, fetching, scrubbing, carrying. A small army of quiet figures keeping the entire estate alive. Your next task is laundry. The noble's family goes through more linen in a day than your entire household could afford in a year. You gather armfuls of white garments stained with sweat, dust, and oil. They smell faintly of perfume, but the scent doesn't hide the labor clinging to them. You carry them down the narrow lane toward the riverbank. The Nile greets you with a soft hiss of current and a wet, earthy smell. Dragonflies dart over the surface. Fishermen shout in the distance, their voices carried by wind and water. For a moment, it's almost peaceful, until you remember how much there's to wash. You kneel at the edge, dipping the linen into the cool river. The shock of the cold water wakes every muscle in your arms. You beat the cloth against smooth stones. Scrub it with natron, the same mineral used to preserve mummies. The irony isn't lost on you. The dead are wrapped in cleaner linen than the living. Nearby, other servants chatter quietly as they work. You catch bits of gossip. Someone's cousin was caught stealing dates from the temple. Someone else swears they saw a crocodile near the grain docks last night. You listen, half smiling, not daring to add your own voice. Words travel fast in Egypt, and loose tongues can sink even lowly servants. When the laundry is done, you spread the linen on reeds to dry. The white sheets ripple in the wind like sails. The sun turns them stiff and crisp in minutes. By the time you fold them, your arms ache and your shoulders burn. Next, it's the grain store. You step into a large mud brick building that smells of dust and mice. Piles of barley and emmer wheat rise around you like golden dunes. You're here to help measure the daily rations, food, for the palace workers and animals. A scribe stands nearby, red pen in hand, recording numbers on papyrus. His eyes are sharp, his tone sharper. Don't spill a single grain, he warns. Every measure belongs to the gods first. You nod, scooping carefully. The grains whisper against your fingers, dry, endless, alive. Egypt survives on this simple thing. Without grain, there is no bread, no beer, no offering to the gods. Sometimes when you're tired, you imagine each kernel as a human soul, countless, replaceable, easily swept away by the wind. By mid-afternoon, you're hauling water jars again. The servants form a line, passing heavy amphorae from hand to hand. Each one sloshes against your hip, cool for a second, then burning heavy. You keep rhythm with the others, silent, mechanical. The overseer watches from the shade. His whip hangs loose at his side, but the threat is always there, like the hiss of a cobra you can't see. Once, years ago, you tried to slow down, just for a breath. The lash across your back taught you not to. As you work, you glance toward the river. The sun glints off the water, dazzling your eyes. For a heartbeat, you imagine walking straight into it, letting the current pull you away from the palace, away from orders, away from duty. You wonder how far you could float before someone noticed you were gone. Then a shout breaks the daydream. You there, faster. You bow your head, resume your place, and the fantasy slips away like the water itself. A little before sunset, the noble's kitchen calls for help. You step into the smoky heat again. Fish sizzle on bronze pans, onions fry until the air stings your eyes. The cook barks orders in rapid bursts. You slice, stir, carry clean. The pace is frantic, but familiar. There's a strange satisfaction here. The kitchen is chaos, but it's human chaos. Sweat, laughter, curses. The cooks joke about the master's appetite, about how the lady refuses to eat duck because she claims the gods disapprove. One older servant whispers that she just thinks it makes her fat. You laugh under your breath, careful not to be heard. You pluck herbs from a clay pot, coriander, mint, maybe fenugreek, and crush them between your fingers. The scent bursts fresh and green, a small reminder that the world isn't all dust and duty. Dinner time comes, and you carry the trays into the dining hall. The nobles recline on low couches, eating slowly, lazily. The smell of roasted goose mixes with wine and incense. They laugh at stories about wars and dreams and omens. You stand at the edge of the room, tray balanced, body still. You can't taste the food, but you smell every detail: honey glaze, burnt sugar, garlic. It's torture in the kindest way. When the meal ends, you clear the dishes. The scraps, bits of bread, some dates, a sliver of meat will be your dinner later, shared with the other servants. You don't complain. You've learned that leftovers from luxury are still better than nothing. Outside, the sky shifts from gold to red to deep violet. The sound of frogs rises from the riverbanks. You're still not done. The lady's jewelry must be cleaned, the lamps refilled with oil, the courtyard swept again, because the desert wind never rests. By now, your body moves without thought. You are muscle and motion, breath and repetition. But even in the monotony, there's something sacred. You think of the Nile's eternal rhythm: flood, sow, harvest, repeat. Maybe your life mirrors that. Servitude as a kind of cycle, endless but steady. Maybe that's how Egypt survives. Not by the will of the gods, but by the hands of those who serve quietly beneath them. Scholars still argue whether servants like you found meaning in this work, or if survival alone drove them. Some ancient writings suggest pride in duty, that serving one's master faithfully brought favor from the gods. Others whisper that beneath the chants of obedience there was resentment, a longing for a life beyond walls of limestone and command. You don't know which is true. You only know that as the last light fades, you're still moving, still cleaning, still serving. The night will come soon, and with it a small, precious hour of peace before it all begins again. You look up. Stars blink above the dark river, cool and far away. Their reflections shimmer in the water, 1,000 tiny lights dancing. For the first time today, you allow yourself to smile. Because even if tomorrow is the same, at least you've survived this one dot. By the time darkness folds over the palace, a strange quiet replaces the day's noise. The hum of work fades. The fan stops swishing. Even the animals in the courtyard grow still, their silhouettes barely visible against the torchlight. But you know this silence isn't peace. It's something heavier, like the air just before a sandstorm. Inside the palace, the nobles dine in their private chambers. Laughter rises from behind painted doors, muffled by silk curtains. You and the others move like shadows through the halls, carrying trays of fruit and beer, refilling lamps with oil, keeping the night smooth and seamless for those who will never know exhaustion. And yet, this is the hour when the palace feels most alive. Not the loud, public kind of life, but the quiet pulse of secrets. You pass 2 women whispering near the balcony, one of the ladies, attendants, and the scribe's wife. Their voices are hushed, urgent. You catch fragments: the priest, the offering, someone saw, but they stop when they notice you. You bow your head, pretending you heard nothing, and move on. You've learned that overhearing is dangerous, but pretending not to overhear is an art form. The lady's daughter passes you in the hallway again. She's older now, maybe 14, wrapped in fine linen and smelling of lotus oil. Her gold bangles clink as she walks. For a second, her eyes meet yours, a look too long to be accidental. You glance away immediately, heart thudding in your chest. Such glances could ruin lives. Not hers, of course, yours. You turn down the servants' corridor, breathing slow, trying to calm the storm inside you. You can't afford thoughts like that. Not here, not ever. Still, you can't help it. In moments like these, you realize how close and yet how far your world is from theirs. You share the same walls, breathe the same air, hear the same music drifting through the courtyards. But there's an invisible wall thicker than stone between you. The palace runs on more than labor. It runs on silence. You keep the secrets that hold this golden world together. You know which noble sneaks out to visit the temple dancer by the river. You know that one of the scribes secretly drinks from the wine meant for rituals. You've seen the lady's brother gambling with guards in the storeroom after dark, losing more in one night than your family earns in a year. And sometimes, late at night, you hear the noble's wife crying softly. Behind her curtain, the sound, almost lost under the rustle of palm leaves outside. You never speak of it. You simply make sure her lamp stays lit a little longer, so she won't be afraid of the dark. Scholars still argue whether Egyptian servants were merely tools or trusted confidants. Some evidence suggests they were close to their masters, even protected by them. Others say that trust was just another layer of control, that loyalty was rewarded only until it wasn't. You've seen both sides. Once, a servant you knew was caught, whispering about the noble's dealings with a temple priest. They found his body near the granaries the next morning. No one asked questions. By midday, his replacement was already sweeping the same floor. The fear of being forgotten is worse than the fear of death. Still, amid all the whispers, there are moments of quiet rebellion, small, invisible acts that only servants understand. Someone hides an extra loaf of bread for a hungry child. Someone dulls the edge of a harsh command by pretending not to hear it. You yourself once poured a few drops of extra oil into an old servant's lamp because she said her eyes were failing. No one noticed, but she smiled, and that smile stayed with you longer than any order ever has. Later, as the noble and his guests drift toward the garden for cool air, you follow with more wine. The night is heavy with scent, jasmine, myrrh, and the faint sweetness of the river. The nobles talk of omens and dreams. You stand there, silent, and for a heartbeat, you feel something shift. These people, the ones who rule your life, they're afraid, too. Not of whips or hunger, but of curses of spirits, of judgment from gods they can't see. Maybe, in that sense, you're not so different after all. The lady excuses herself. You follow at a distance, carrying her small lamp. She walks through the garden, the flame flickering against the dark leaves. She stops by the lotus pond, staring at her reflection. You wait quietly as always. After a long silence, she says, almost to herself, "Do you think the gods see everything we do?" You freeze. You're not supposed to answer questions like that. But she turns to you, her eyes searching. You whisper, "Yes, my lady. The gods see everything," says he dreamed of a black cat walking through the temple gates. Another laughs nervously, claiming it's a sign from Bastet. The conversation turns into superstition and laughter, but you notice how they glance over their shoulders afterward. Even the powerful fear the unseen. She nods slowly, as if confirming something she already knew. Then she walks away, leaving you with the reflection of her fading light trembling on the water. You stand there for a long time. The frogs croak softly, and the stars shimmer above, ancient and patient. You realize that this palace, this entire kingdom, runs on the fragile balance between truth and silence. Everyone pretends. Everyone hides something. Even you. When you finally return to the servants' quarters, the others are already half asleep. You lie down on your reed mat, listening to their breathing. The smell of oil and dust hangs in the air. Your body aches, but your mind won't rest. The lady's question echoes inside you. Do the gods really see everything? You think about the day's whispers, the stolen glances, the hidden kindnesses. If the gods are watching, they must see it all, not just the power, but the pain that keeps the machine turning. And as your eyes finally close, you wonder which one they'll remember more. The next morning arrives heavy and golden, sunlight spilling through the narrow slits in the wall. You wake stiff, shoulders sore from the day before. The air smells faintly of dust and incense, a sign that the priests have begun their dawn rituals. Somewhere across the city, a conch horn echoes, long and deep, calling worshippers to the temples. Today your duties shift. You've been chosen to assist at the temple attached to the noble's estate, a place where mortal life touches the divine, and where servants like you walk a line between sacred and unseen. You eat a small breakfast, coarse bread, a sip of beer. Then you make your way to the temple courtyard. The building rises out of the sand, like a carved dream, walls painted with gods and symbols, columns shaped like blooming papyrus. The colors shimmer even after centuries of desert wind. You can feel the power here, humming beneath the stone. Your first task is cleaning the outer altar. It's simple but precise. Every drop of water, every stroke of cloth must follow ritual order. You dip a linen rag into cool water and begin wiping the dust from the carved images of Ra, the sun god. His painted eyes seem to follow you. You whisper a small prayer you half remember. May the sun rise. May my hands be steady. Inside, priests move with slow, deliberate grace, their shaven heads glistening in the light. The smell of myrrh and burning oil fills the chamber. You bow deeply as one passes. He barely nods back. To them, you're just a shadow, one of dozens who clean the floors, prepare offerings, and keep the fires burning. Still, it feels different here. The palace is full of orders and vanity, but the temple breathes. You can sense something vast, something eternal pressing against your chest, as if the gods themselves are watching through the walls. You sweep the floor, careful not to disturb the sacred sand patterns drawn near the altar. The soft brush of your broom is the only sound for a moment, until the priest begins to chant. His voice rises and falls like the tide, ancient words about rebirth, protection, and judgment. You don't understand every phrase, but you know their weight. After a while, another servant joins you. He's older, with sun-cracked skin and calm eyes. You've seen him before, though you've never spoken much. As you work side by side, he whispers, "They say the gods don't listen to the nobles first. They listen to us, the ones who clean their temples." You glance at him, surprised. "Do you believe that?" He smiles faintly. "I have to. Otherwise, what's the point?" His words linger long after he walks away. By midday, the priests call for help with a different task, preparing offerings for the dead. A small group of servants, including you, carry baskets of bread, onions, beer, and flowers to the tomb chamber below the temple. The air grows cooler and still as you descend the steps. Your torch flickers shadows dancing along the painted walls. The chamber smells of age and stone. Statues of Anubis and Osiris stand guard, their painted faces expressionless. You've been here before, but it never feels ordinary. You place the offerings carefully beside a painted sarcophagus. Each gesture has meaning. Bread for sustenance, beer for joy, flowers for rebirth. As you work, a priest explains softly, the dead still hunger. Without these gifts, their spirits grow restless. You nod. You've always wondered what it must be like to live your life serving others, and then die only to need servants again in the afterlife. The Egyptians believed that every soul carries its deeds like weights, judged by the goddess Mat against the feather of truth. If the heart is too heavy, it's devoured by the monster Ammit. You've seen paintings of her crocodile head, lion body, nightmare-given form. Scholars still argue whether servants like you truly believe these stories, or if faith was simply routine, like breathing or bowing. Maybe belief and habit are the same thing after a while. You help light incense before the altar of Osiris, watching the smoke rise in twisting ribbons. The priest begins to chant the opening of the mouth, a ritual meant to awaken the dead, to let them eat, speak, and breathe again. You stand quietly, your skin prickling. You've repeated these motions dozens of times, but this moment always feels sacred, the boundary between two worlds thin as papyrus. Then something odd happens. As the smoke thickens, a breeze passes through the chamber. Impossible, since no wind can reach this deep underground. The torches flicker. For a heartbeat, you swear the carved eyes on the wall blink. You freeze, heart pounding. The priest doesn't react. He just keeps chanting. Maybe he didn't notice. Maybe he did. You'll never know. When it's over, you climb back into the sunlight, blinking hard. The air above feels too bright, too hot. You take a moment by the temple steps, letting the warmth seep back into your bones. Around you, the city hums, merchants calling, children laughing, oxen groaning as they pull carts along the dusty roads. The world feels ordinary again. But inside, something has shifted. Later in the afternoon, you help carry sacred oils and incense back to the noble's home. The lady insists that her husband's evening prayer room smell of temple smoke. As you place the small alabaster jars on the table, you catch your reflection in the polished bronze mirror. For the first time, you see yourself not just as a servant, but as part of something larger, an unbroken chain of hands that keeps gods, nobles, and commoners all bound together. That thought both comforts and frightens you. Night falls again. From your quarters, you can see the temple lights flickering in the distance. You imagine the priests still chanting, still burning incense, still sending prayers upward. Maybe somewhere in that smoke your name rises too, unspoken but known. You lie down, exhausted, the scent of myrrh still clinging to your skin. Your eyes drift closed to the rhythm of crickets and far-off river waves. And for the first time in a long while, you dream not of masters or chores, but of walking freely beside the Nile, under the endless stars, the gods silent but kind. By the time the temple bells fade and the last torches dim, the world outside turns soft and silver. The desert cools fast after sunset. You step out of the noble's courtyard, your arms heavy, your back aching, your hands still smelling faintly of oil and grain. The sky above you glows deep blue, scattered with stars so clear they almost look close enough to touch. The moon hangs above the Nile like a quiet guardian, casting ripples of light across the dark water. You walk along the narrow path toward your quarters, bare feet sinking into cool dust, and you finally exhale. It's strange, for hours you move through the day, surrounded by voices, commands, the clatter of bronze, and the buzz of flies. But at night, the silence feels almost alive. You hear the croak of frogs near the canal, the distant laughter of other servants gathered somewhere in the dark. A donkey brays. The world exhales with you. You reach your small hut, a shared space built from mud brick, with a reed mat for a bed and a low oil lamp flickering on the floor. There's a bowl of lentil stew waiting, already cooling. Another servant, a friend named Mary, sits beside it, humming softly as she mends a torn tunic. She glances up and smiles. "You survived another day," she teases. "Barely," you sigh, dropping down beside her. "I think my arms forgot how to rest." She chuckles. "Then you'll fit right in. The ones who still feel pain are the lucky ones. Means you're still alive." You both eat in silence for a while. The stew is thin but comforting, the kind of food that doesn't fill you but still warms your chest. From outside, someone plucks a simple tune on a lyre. The rhythm is clumsy but familiar, a song passed from worker to worker, generation to generation. You lean back, watching the flicker of the lamp dance on the walls. Shadows look almost human, as if the room itself is breathing. "Do you think they ever see us?" You ask suddenly. "Who? The gods, the nobles, anyone?" Mary shrugs, still sewing. "Maybe not during the day, but at night. Who knows?" She looks toward the open window slit, where the moonlight creeps in. "Maybe they watch while we sleep, to make sure we wake up and do it all again." You smile faintly, unsure if that's comforting or not. Outside, a few other servants gather near a small fire. Someone passes around flatbread. Someone else pours a shared jug of beer. Laughter rises, soft, tired laughter that feels like rebellion. You join them. For a brief moment, there are no masters, no chores, no temples, just people under the stars, talking about anything but work. One of the older men tells a story about a crocodile that learned to talk. Another swears he saw a ghost by the river last week. You laugh until your ribs hurt, even though part of you wonders if he's telling the truth. Egypt is full of ghosts. Everyone knows that. As the night deepens, conversation fades to a hum. The fire burns low. You lie back on the sand, looking up at the Milky Way. The stars seem infinite. It's humbling how small you feel, how brief your days are compared to the ancient gods whose temples you clean. You think about the stories, carved on tomb walls, of pharaohs who rose to join the sun, of servants who followed them into eternity. Some people say that in the afterlife, every servant becomes free. Others whisper that the afterlife is just another palace, another set of commands. Scholars still argue whether the Egyptians truly saw paradise as reward or repetition, a question maybe no one can ever answer. You close your eyes and listen to the soft murmur of the Nile. You imagine it, carrying all the day's fatigue.